Welcome, hello, and how are you doing today? Thank you for joining us on another episode of today's Electrical Estimating. I'm your co-host, Chris Trommer, and as always, I'm joined by my partner in crime, Sal Huerta. Sal, how are you doing today?
Good morning, everyone.
So this episode, we're going to be speaking with Paul from McCormick, great estimating software. I know you work with them. We've worked with them. He gives us a lot of in-depth information into what estimating software you should be looking at for first-time users. I guess we can put it that way. People that may be coming into the market needing an estimating software, their business might be changing or growing. So a lot of insight into sort of what their services are, what they provide, but also questions on what they should be thinking about or looking at when deciding on what software to move forwards with. I guess my question to you would be, are all estimating softwares created equal? Are they all the same, just different brands, different databases, just different looks? Or are some offering different services or different abilities that others do not have? What's your take on that?
Excellent question. The short answer is no. They're not all created equal. There are starter versions. A lot of times they call them light. There's obviously the middle version, which has a little more bells and whistles, and then the high end versions that do like everything under the sun. And a lot of times, customers will take a look at these and kind of lump them together. But just as you mentioned earlier, as far as where are you within your own company? Are you just starting to do the basic electrical jobs? Something like a used car lot, lighting kind of thing. And then when you start graduating up to renovations for hospitals or at the high end versions where you're building football stadiums, all these kinds of things matter as to what stage you are as a company. And then these estimating packages fit along those lines. A lot of them over the years have been, based upon workflow. So, what do you need to add to these jobs? What kind of phases are you doing within these jobs? And so, because of that, that equals the type of estimating software that you're looking for. And we've talked a little bit about this in the past. These aren't like pricing programs or stuff that people think that they might be. They're detailed engineering programs. And so the more detailed the job is, the more of the engineering stuff that you need to have within these programs to do these things for you. And so yes, all of them are different in that respect.
So that would sort of be the first thing you're looking at when, say, if you're coming into a place where you need an estimating software, the type of jobs you're going to be going after would sort of dictate the program that you should be starting with. Either, as you said, sort of those entry level ones that are for maybe smaller, easier upcoming projects, up to these larger ones where 5 people can be working on the same project in different capacities. Do you find that people make a change throughout, or let me put it this way, does a company make a change over time from estimating softwares? Do they go from that basic one, and as they get larger and more complex projects, they start moving up to different estimating programs? Or is it really dictated by what the estimator at the company is used to? I guess it's a three-pronged question. With, do you see a lot of people switching estimating softwares over time, either based on the contractor estimator or the contracting company?
It's a little bit of both, but to answer the question point blank, when you're purchased a light version or starter version of the estimating software, there'll come a time when you've overgrown it, you're outgrown it. And so, yes, you're going to have to look at the next software program that meets your needs. But when you do that, that could mean you're adding a second estimator or a third estimator or junior estimators, as we've had a discussion with one of our contractor partners talked about. In that case, then you have to have a software that can handle two, three, four, or more estimators on a specific job. Well, now that's grown into a medium size or a larger size estimating package. And at that time, then you might look at, like you mentioned, a customer, or, I mean, a contractor's estimator might be trained on this type of software. So when he moves up to the next version, it might be, okay, this new guy we just hired, he's more specific in this one software program. Like in this case, we're talking to Paula here at McCormick. So they might be a McCormick estimator that they just hired in. So because of that, that'll lean towards, well, let's just buy the McCormick software because this guy knows how to do it, and it's big enough to handle all the jobs that we're looking at doing, upgrading from the smaller version. So yeah, it's a little bit of both of those.
So there will actually be times where you might be hiring an estimator into your company, and you're going to have to be looking at what estimating software he's used to using and maybe bringing that on board, so you have him using something he's proficient in. Even if the other estimators are using software A, he uses software B, you might be purchasing software B for him to use, as long as that way he's more familiar with it and more productive.
It's very common for a contracting company to have multiple estimating packages within their company, specifically for that reason. If you hire in somebody and you want them to learn the software that's there, from another estimating company, it could take them months to get up to speed. But if you just purchase the one that he's used to, he's off and running, day one. So there is that,
Gotcha.
trade-off that a contracting company has to look at to say, what do I need this guy to do, or gal for that matter, and what's the quickest way to get them up and running.
I think we'll leave it at that. I think we've chit chatted enough for these people, and we'll let them get into the episode with Paul and get the information they need from there. So, as always, great talking with you, Sal. I'll catch up with you soon. Paul, I got friends right now. About 3 or 4 of them. They have their own electrical companies. They're doing service calls primarily at this time. But, they just started out, some of them a little bit further along than others. If they start looking at where they can expand their business, they're young guys and they're starting to look at new construction, mid to large size projects or what they can do, where should they start considering purchasing an estimating software? Where does that come into the conversation for them? And why should they would be a second part to that, even start thinking about this?
Sure. That's a really good question. And, we have some experience on this. McCormick has been around for 44 years, if you can believe that, helping contractors. So we have actually had an estimating software for 44 years, which I think is crazy. I mean, you're talking back in the days where it was Apple II computer. You needed one disk to read, one to write, So it started way back then. I have been with McCormick for about 20 years, and I've spoken to thousands of contractors that do, all facets of work. The one thing I've learned is that if you're committed to an estimating software like McCormick, your life will be much more easier in the end. So listen, if you're doing any sort of bidding, now is the time. Estimating software makes you more accurate, speeds up the process immensely. So you think about it, you're doing a bid. How long does a bid take you? It's just a ton of time to do these things, and you want to do them correctly. You want to do them accurately. Not only that, nowadays, digital plans are the standard. Every contractor, they're getting PDF plans. With McCormick, we have an all-in-one digital takeoff estimating software. That means our DEP, or Design Estimating Pro, is built into the estimating software. So I'll explain a little bit more about that later, but it's almost become the norm where you're going to get a PDF plan every single time. Having these programs are going to help everything in your business, from the bidding process to the management process. And it's really just probably the most important factor in success.
So this is really going to be something they should be thinking of first and foremost. Once they're starting to make that and they're looking at bigger offices or pens and paper and chairs or whatever it may be, this should be sort of top of mind that, hey, this is something we need to invest in first. We need to figure out what we're going to do, because it seems like without this, there's no next step. It seems like step 1, find an estimating software. Step 2, start moving into this market space.
Exactly. Think about it. You need bids to make money, right? Mm-hmm. So what are you going to use to create these bids? Yeah, you can do it by hand. And it's going to take you a long time to do it. You're going to have to figure out where those labor units are, how to actually bid it in the end, where an estimating program is going to take care of all of those processes for you. So again, it just makes your life a heck of a lot easier. And especially a new contractor coming up, you don't have much time to do bidding. Mm-hmm. You really don't. You're out there in the field. You're managing the jobs. You're in the office. You're doing the accounting. You're doing the hiring. It's just, with all these things going on, it's hard for you to sit down and do the most important part of your job, which is getting that bid and getting that bid won.
As you said, you've been with McCormick for a long time. McCormick's been around for a long time. What type of needs, sort of following up on that previous question, do you hear contractors normally inquiring about, like, they've taken that first step of actually finding and estimating software that interests them? Do you hear any particular needs or common needs that they bring to you guys that you
Oh
have
yeah,
to address?
definitely, absolutely. Good question. I mean, especially a contractor just starting out, material, labor, and pricing is the biggie. That is the biggie. McCormick, we already provide labor to install thousands of items and assemblies within the program. So we have the labor built in, and we have several different labor levels. You have a bid labor if you really want to get competitive. You've got change order labors if you're doing a change order. You even have the union or NECA in there. So if you wanted to do some union work, you definitely can utilize the NECA labor units. But the greatest thing is that as our program connects beautifully with companies like netPricer to keep the database up to date. Basically, we have this direct connection to a company like netPricer. It'll give us a file and it keeps the entire database. I mean, in one shot, it'll just update the entire database with the most current pricing of every single commodity in there, or most commodities in there to be more accurate. And then what it does, it gives a real-time update to suppliers. So this is actually a really cool process in McCormick. Basically, once you run your material report, you hit a netPricer button right there on the screen, and you see all of your suppliers' pricing like update right in front of your eyes. It's really cool. Once that happens, we have this cherry pick feature that allows you to choose the best supplier if you wanted to, or you can even choose the best pricing from the best supplier. So there's a couple of different options there, but that is one of the bigger things that we hear when we first have a contractor call in and ask us, hey, we need some help on our labor and our pricing. And we can definitely do that with companies like netPricer. Sal, looks like you had a question for him?
I did. Now, again, thank you for that. And one of the things I was going to ask you is we've been partners, for almost 2 decades now, integrated and worked with each other really well over the years. But that was my question for you: is how well has this helped benefit your company, McCormick?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, it's a game changer. Having this connection, I can't tell you. It's probably every single phone call that we take. It's, hey, can you connect us with our supplier? Can you connect us with our supplier? And the answer is always yes. I mean, netPricer, how many suppliers do you guys connect to? And we connect to you, and it's done. It's the most simplest process to set up, and it's a live connection. So anytime these guys want to see their supplier update, they hit one button, and literally in front of their eyes, it takes about 10 seconds for their up-to-date pricing to flow in. So really cool process.
No, I did have a question because you mentioned databases, netPricer, McCormick's. With your database, is that something a new contractor would be able to customize, over time once they get on board with you guys to sort of fit the jobs they're going to be going after? If it's going to be more leaning towards school, commercial grade, residential, stuff of that nature?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely 100% customizable. I think you're going to find that we already have most of the items for those types of work, especially commercial, industrial, residential. You're going to find most of the items in there. Now, if you wanted to add an item, easily done. You can open up the database and you can add an item at any time. Or what we have is an import process. So if you have an Excel file with 2,000 items that you want to bring into the system, we can actually upload that Excel file, bring it right in. And then as soon as those items are in the system, you can start building assemblies, customizing it how you'd like, putting them to their own cost codes. So they split out on the job breakouts. I mean, there's just a million things you can do with an item as soon as it gets into the database.